We've got a number of people wanting to come up and entertain us this evening, and limited time as usual, so if all of you can kind of try and limit your pieces to about 3 minutes or less, that would be good. Thanks very much. Right, well, to start off, I think we could start with a lady who I don't think I've seen here before, and she's a poet. So, Gail, would you like to come up and read one of your poems for us? Gail Campbell, everybody, from Spider's Poetry.
Do you want to get a couple of next one up as well, sort of sit behind?
Tony, this is your microphone.
Oh. You just can't get the start.
Right, you're fine.
A smudge of cup tilted against the sky. Oh, hunchback moon, you frighten men into pups. You quicken crisp fallen hearts. Something strange simmers now within us. Lo, we catch your eye on leaving the train. Gauze-veiled brooding moon, you taunt the insane.
Wow.
On return, I went outside early, saw the morning light from the misted balcony, and wondered how long since I caught the sunrise between my fingers, breathed the dawn chill, and marvelling. Must have been when I was a teen, racing uphill, training upon a flying road, under crimson trees, chasing the retreating night, gaining on the heels of dawn.
Another one.
That's probably enough.
Lovely.
Thank you very much, Gail.
Unless it's needed for recording. Right, 2 poems from this book only in St Leonard's, which is a fundraiser for St Michael's Hospice. They're both responses to paintings. First one is after Hans Tisdall, Fisherman's Hut, and it's called Exchange. They call me the Birdman of Hastings, but I never set out to collect them or offer them a home. After the first few, I built them little houses from driftwood. So they keep me company, and I am glad. I spend my life taking fish from their element, and never regret it because that is my mission. But seagulls are not welcome here. They are louder and greedier than the excisemen, and will rip open every bag just to see what is there and never stop. My birds ask nothing of me, take nothing from me, give me peace in return, the sort of exchange I like. They bless my boat, never follow me out to sea. They could, if they chose, live in a garden in town, or try their luck with any other fisherman, but no, here they are, all around my little hut, here to stay. Yet how short our lives between tides and moons, so many friends I can never name aloud again. Empty chairs in the pub, obituaries I can never read. If one day I'm lost at sea or fall asleep in my chair, I hope my birds will stay here and be welcomed by whoever takes my boat, my hut and my chair. Okay. And a photograph by Jeremy O'Keefe called End of the Line. It just stops. This could be anywhere and nowhere. A stretch of shingle that might define radioactive, as if Dungeness B is just over the horizon but is still too close. Perhaps this was Derek Jarman's private railway to get him to the pub, or deliver his groceries, or curate his chosen guests for dinner parties. any fish hauled up by boats returned safe and winched above high tide could give you an unforgettable meal, perhaps your last thrill on this earth. Are you brave enough to gather salad from this beach, samphire, dulse, labour, anything else your grandma pointed out? Can you recall which were don't touch? Are these boats abandoned or trash art, paid for either way by Brussels bounty? Stranger things have happened here. Look out, there's a mermaid behind you. Perhaps these boats and this beach show what worse things happen at sea means. The last bus leaves in 10 minutes and you are already marked out as outlandish. Thank you.
Brian Doherty, ladies and gentlemen. It's always good to hear Brian speak because he always comes up with something that's emotive and challenges you, and I love that. Right, we've got some new people with us this year from a new writing group that have only just joined TheFED, so I'd like to invite one of our lovely ladies to come up. Pauline Faulkner from Words and Pics Open Writers. Would you come and entertain us?
I'll try. Hi. Nice to be here. It's only my sort of second visit to the FED, and it's actually my first time actually reading because I've only just recently started sort of going more into poetry. I hope you bear with me. Crumbling bones once held her tall. Old woman sitting on the bench, stooped shoulders, protruding hump down the seam of her blue map, eyes levelled on the ground, no longer able to see the sky. People pass by, no faces, just seen from the waist to their feet. Blue shoes, black shoes, brown shoes, flat shoes, heels, bows and ties. Her gnarled hand grips a shopping trolley. Microwave meal for one. No sharing, no caring. Voices carrying the distance. She has become invisible. A girl stops, reaches up with a small hand, strokes the wrinkled face. Innocence of the child, seeing past disability of age. And this next two, it touched a little bit on how life sort of was in the 50s in our sort of inner cities. First one is called Shrouded. Falling, swirling, swallowing the city, thick grey fog. Coal-fired chimneys belch black smoke. Strangers' footsteps echo, breaking the eerie silence. Dimly lit torches reflect blue haze, golden halo. A solitary girl, weighed down by a heavy basket, walking cautiously, with an air of one who knows her destination. Remains where the shadows are the deepest, hesitating, unsure of her way, panicked by the Stygian darkness. Obliterated street names, well-trodden pathways, hidden, familiarity gone. This is actually one I've just recently ever had in in sort of a collection. Drop forgings. Blacked out windows. No daylight penetrates the gloom. Acrid smoke permeates the airless foundry. Molten steel glows red, poured from the furnace by men with sweaty brows and calloused hands. Giant machine opens its jaws, releases the hammer. Bang, bang, bang. Turn the rod, form the shape. Bang, bang, bang. 10 hours of toil, lungs filled, bursting, gasping, screaming fresh air, ears resounding. Bang, bang, bang. Death by 40. Thank you.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to introduce somebody who's been a stalwart of the Fed for many, many years, more than he can remember. It's you, Dave. Dave Chambers from New and Writers, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know if you said stop or... Anyway, I'm kind of cheating today because I've got this book. It's not mine. It's somebody called Chris Sell. A couple of the workshops I was in today just got lots to talk about. It just reminded this. So I thought there's a poem here called "Strike of Words," and the date line on it says Stepney, 28th of March, 1971. Anyone can write a poem. I still hold that. But you children, sharply organised, you made your words strike. The words of your class march past middle-class poet cynics, shaking their heads, declaring, poetry can do nothing. It makes nothing happen. Yes, their poetry can do nothing, morosely making nothing of the world. But yours, wed to action, can take it over. Priests who lived for learning shackles and dullards hanging on to power saw their enemies in you, in us, and with your shouting, loyal words, you blew them over with your poetry. All down Stepney Green, their bars are broken. Along Commercial Road, the poisoned air clears. In Stepney Churchyard, the grass shines in pride. Children of word and fire, yellow brick children of docks and tenements, you made me what I am. Your words carved me out a new mind. I work to make myself worth the winning. That was his take on one of the things that happened to him. Still in Stepney. I'll just do another one of his, Lil and Bill. Early in the Stepney morning, as I walked to school up Bromley Street, your door would open for me. Lil, you just finished cleaning the classrooms, and Bill stood by the front door, the 10th door up the long terrace. He waved his stick at me. Come and have a cup of tea, son. He told me about Navy days, days of U-boats, days of war, days of struggle. He poured drops of whiskey in my tea, and they bubbled up and winked at me and sent me on my way to school. And on a spring day in May, when the children chalked my name on the school walls, and the governors told the governors not to sack me, Lil, they ordered you to rub it off. They told all the cleaners to rub off the words. You all said no. You were with the children, and they sang outside the school, and they marched through the banks of the city as they waved their banners along the embankment. Next to the swelling Thames, they laughed as they dipped their toes in the fountain and climbed the lions in Trafalgar Square. Poems, you were with me. How can I forget you now, all myself? Your whiskey drops still boil in my blood. Your mop still cleans my mind every morning as I remember my way to school.
We're having a lot of fun with this mic today, aren't we? Thank you, Dave. That was emotive as always. And one thing I'd like to say actually at this point is that there is a very, very important and lovely treasured member of the Fed that's not with us today, Sally Flood, who's obviously not well enough to attend anymore, or at least at the moment. So if she gets to see this on the internet, we're all thinking of you, Sally. We wish you were here. And with that in mind, I'd like to introduce somebody who's always guaranteed to cheer us up at the Fed, Lucia Birch, with a song.
Thank you very much. And I do like it. So cast your mind back to in England to the beginning of this year, and we had two full moons in January, and I really felt those full moons. And I go for a lot of walks every day, and that's when I sort of, you know, contemplate and just let it all run through my mind and my soul. And I really wanted to write a song so much, and I had one line: and the moon is full in the winter sky. And that was it. That's all I had. And then at the end of January, a dear friend of mine who does lovely stuff, she asked if I'd like to be a bit of a guinea pig to a new sort of thing she was trying. I said okay. And so we did this deep focus session where she just took me into a meditative state, and I just went into my body, and she really just listened. And I've worked with her before, so I knew what to do. And afterwards she said to me, Lucia, I'm not going to say anything, I'm just going to send you home now, we're not even going to have a cup of tea, but go and journal this. And I said, well, and she looked at me, go for a walk, you'll know what to do. And she knew I would, and I went for this wonderful walk, and this song came. So this song is all about caring for ourselves. It's about the need to really care for ourselves, and I'm glad I've been singing it the last couple of days, because it's so easy to forget. Hear the process and the journey within the words. I haven't practiced it very much, so my guitar work isn't wonderful. The moon is full in the winter sky. The meadows shine as if filled with stars. I wrap my heart in the arms of love, sing her songs of the earth and the sun, whisper sounds of the sea. I walk by the river to ease my soul. I find a small child, all lost and forsaken. I wrap her in the arms of love. As crows fly high on the winds above, and we rest by the old willow tree. I look in your eyes and see who you are. You come from the places begun together, eternal and free. And the moon is full in the winter sky. The meadows shine as if filled with stars. I wrap my heart in the arms of love and sing her songs of the earth and the sun, and whisper the sound of the sea.
Oh, what can you say? I think personally, folks, that we ought to get Lucia to go and play in the Houses of Parliament just before they're about to debate something, because it would really bring the volume down, wouldn't it? They'd really chill them all out. We might actually get some decent decisions then, where people are actually in touch with their human side. That was lovely, Lucia, thank you. Right, well, next we've got a woman with no name. There you are, a woman with no name. And she's not lying, because she showed me her badge and it definitely said woman with no name. So here she is, ladies and gentlemen, from Stevenage Survivors.
My first poem was written when, oh God, I don't know, when I was really, really not quite old. And it's called Words. Spores that fall on barren ground of a clinging, ripening branch. Pure, unpolished, clear words that awaken the volcanic shudderings of a woman's longing. Words that pierce the cocoon of living to allow satisfaction to flow like liquid down the legs of a virgin. Words that splatter upon the rock of ages to reveal themselves from the camouflage of love and longing. The next one is called I'm a Survivor. I'm a survivor. Protect me not from the fire that cut the fuse that was in your loins. Oh, but I'm firing on all guns, you say, as you try to pulp my body of all resolve and human waste. Hey, desire, you shout. I watch you as you turn, naked, your skin burning alive. Yes, alive, you tried to shoot into my soul, but I caught you with my mouth, and with burning shame, I spat back the feeble shot that came from you. I see you again, walking away, your hands now burning, your skin dripping, dripping upon your step ahead. But as you begin to die with those burning wounds, I tilted my resolve just slightly, but then I rested it upon my breast, and I called to you, hold your arms up high, although little of your body remained for me to aim higher or lower, with my whispering, pulsating, leering, ingesting, wide open body. I turned away, and with my nostrils filled with the smelling of burning flesh, I reached for my lavender-scented, virginal handkerchief and stabbed to my breast. Adieu. Another one. It's called Crawling. I have no idea when I wrote these. It just comes into my brain. This is called Crawling. My body crawled from underneath my sleeping mind that was buried by the trauma of my childhood. Naked, I squirmed among the voices that had risen from the flaccid ground of my childhood, and with a thunderous voice that burnt their mouths, I rose into the night sky to be captured by the moon, where my world lay. Here I could allow myself to look again, my body, and peel the dead skin away. Then the moon would capture me and hold it in its light, and I would stand alone, yes, alone. But I knew if I stood alone, the bodies hiding in the dark would no longer fester and only ingest their own vomit. I would cut my finger and let the blood trickle down my thighs onto the fertile ground. Xmas, I get what I want. I dipped my pinky in the ruby liqueur and let my tongue linger on its lasting sweetness. I readily, my hips caressed yours in response to the staccato guilt. Your eyes moved pleadingly into my audience. I bit the corn from its husk and let the butter run down your groins. I swallowed the strawberries whole, wanting only the main course to share with you, and you too languish in the smell and taste of our togetherness. As we finger the warts on each other's fingers, you grimace as I move the hands of the clock to one again and again. And then it was you who tested me till I grappled at the full stop. Thank you.
Well, for a lady with no name, she certainly knows how to make an impression. Thank you very much. And to follow that, I have to come up with somebody who you can always guarantee that this man will have something to say. He very rarely agrees with me, but he's entitled to his opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Diamond from Goodmayes.
Two pieces, both about me, and the first one's a poem. It's called The Conversation. It was such a lovely day, doors and windows open wide. I was in my early teens and was reading in the lounge. In the kitchen, Mum and Dad. Bathed in heat, I heard her say, "Have you spoken to him yet?" "No," he said, "I'll do it now." Dad came in and took a seat. Asked me if I knew of sex and how babies were conceived. I said yes. He said, "OK," then got up and went away, obviously quite relieved. Now the next one is not a poem, but it's about me as well. I wrote it in the workshop today, one of the workshops today. What a life. I just want a bit of peace without any complications. Simple pleasures such as watching banal quiz games on the television or listening to catchy popular music are all I want. However, people disturb me with their problems. For example, my neighbour had to involve me in dealing with a sick fox when I was watching Tipping Point the other day. I would have put it down, but my wife would have killed me, so we called the RSPCA. Every so often, my grandchildren come to stay because my wife invites them. It means that I can't watch my TV programmes and have to put up with the children's antics. I do shout at my grandson sometimes, as you mustn't smack kids anymore. My granddaughter thinks it's very funny, and I know she reports back to her mother on the goings-on. My wife thinks the child's an angel, but my daughter and I have a different view. Maybe, if she is angelic, she's more like Satan than a cherub. Still, I mustn't complain. I'm ageing well. Tomorrow, I'll be 69. A good position to be in, I suppose.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know what, look, I'm beginning to think we ought to take back the thanks to Lucia for the salad. What did you put in that salad, Lucia? Dear, oh dear. I'll tell you what, one good thing about all this is that the Fed has been hankering after some more members and all the rest of it. Well, I can honestly say, we'll be getting plenty of new members. The last time I looked it up, they're called protesters, I think. Right. George Fuller from Newham Writers. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. George.
Yeah, I've got two poems I wrote for the Newham Riders. This first one's called The Bike Ride. It's about a bike ride in the very cold weather we had. So, the bike ride. I had to go on a bike ride to keep fit and sane around the Hoo Peninsula, across marshy Kent terrain. Lungs pumping, heart beating, fit for the die. In the teeth of a February wind from far Siberia. Legs and brain engaged, my bus past weight to contend. A long hot tail of cyclists with me on the end. Pedals turning, gears whirring. The leader, she calls a halt to us 9 to regroup. Then later round a pub table we spoon our soup. Woman sitting next to me, she runs a cycling project. Building women's confidence is her lung cancer's object. Then we're talking about ironing, how she even irons her sheets. But I only iron shirts, and that's for special treats. Crank turning, chain blurring. From Rochester, it's long, slow hills, and the wind is from behind. When a cyclist, that's her name, when a cyclist from Shanghai many moons, she's slow like me, with two of a kind. At the top of a hill, we all stopped to regroup. When dismounting, swung her leg over her saddle and struck me with her boot. I said loudly, "Oi, mind your big foot," and she laughed and gave me such a smile that kept my legs a pumping for many and many a mile. Gears changing, speed arranging. And that night, as I lay between my unironed sheets, I said, "Oi, mind your big foot," and saw wind smile. Tyres humming, chain running. Right, that's one part. Yeah. This one's a incident that happened in Stratford, East London. It's called Flowers and Candles, where the people walk through. As I went to Stratford Centre one bitter cold April day, police tape, blue and white, a fluttering, obstructed my way. And shoppers were asking, "What's happened? What has happened here?" And two coppers standing said, "There's been a shooting just near." No groceries, shoes or laptops could be bought for 2 days, as crime scene investigators on a bloody scene did gaze. They did fingertip searches, watched security videos and took note of the outstretched arms, the dead eyes of a boy a bullet had smoked. Now there are flowers and candles where the people walk through, with notes saying, "Sweet wine now in heaven with Jesus, for the good they might do." And there's a newspaper cutting informing of 8 stabbed and shot in 1 week. And on my TV, a woman beseeches, "Let my son be the last, make it stop, the future's too bleak." So, thank you.
Thanks very much, George. Right, well, now I'm going to move on to somebody who came up with us today on the coach all the way from Hastings. It's Marion, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
I hope this joke will make you laugh because it's quite funny. I came to England in the 60s and I always suffered with my feet. So I used to work in the Dorking General Hospital. I was a nurse then. And one day someone introduced me to the chiropratist. So I went along to make an appointment. Right? That was for the following week. Went back the next week. I forgot where I went. So I went into this same house that looked just at the chiropratist. So I walked in and sat down, and the nurse came up to me and she said, "Hello, can I help you?" So I said, "Yes, I made an appointment." She said, "Have you been here before?" I said, "Yes." So she went in and she came back out again and she said, "You sure you?" "Yes, I've been here before." Anyway, she went back in and she said to the nurse, "Tell me," so then she said, "Would you like to come along, please?" So I went in And I went up, and there was a gentleman sitting there at the entrance. So I put my handbag down, put my coat down and my hat. Then I went forward to him and said, "Oh, I forgot to take my stockings off." He said, "What do you want to take your stockings off for? I'm a dentist." So anyway, when he composed himself and he stopped laughing, he said, "Oh, I know who you want. You want Miss Black. Oh, she's only a few yards down the road." Well, you know, I got through that door like a bullet out of a gun. I was so embarrassed. So I wrote it. I never stopped telling you on this job. Thank you.
And I thought it was only me that got into those kind of situations. But in situations like this, folks, it's always good to know that at a time like this, there's one person in the Fed that we can always rely on to bring a bit of good old traditional viewability to our show, and that is, ladies and gentlemen, John Malcolmson.
My daughter, hearing some of the stories that I would tell about my father, decided that I really ought to begin by writing them down. And so I thought perhaps instead of bringing you a piece of fiction, I'll bring you some fact. However, I would point out that someone once said of my father, "He's not the kind of man to allow a small matter like veracity stand in the way of a good story." So I'm not going to vouch for absolutely how true these are. I've got several here, I'll just pick a few out. While at boarding school, my father discovered that in a small town about 15 miles away there was a bakery and cafe that did a range of cream cakes. He was rather partial to cream, and is the only person I have known able to eat cream with a spoon straight from the tub. Among the items they sold were meringues. He described these as being about the size of his hand. They did not have a flat side, they were hollow. And a portion of 2 hollow shells full of whipped cream were then sandwiched together with enough cream to make them about 1 inch apart. Dad persuaded a friend to cycle out with him, where they gorged themselves on meringues and then cycled back. That evening, Dad's friend was sick, and the school matron demanded to know what he had eaten out of school. He confessed to the meringues and was asked how many. 8. No wonder you were sick. But my friend Malcolmson ate 11. The next morning, the headmaster summoned Dad to his study. "Is it true you cycled 15 miles out to Malton, ate 11 meringues and cycled back?" "Yes, sir." "And you weren't sick?" "No, sir." "You pig. You may go." My grandfather became Dean of Carlisle Cathedral, but before that he was the rector of Stoke-on-Trent. My grandfather was partial to pork, ham and bacon. At the time, pigs were kept in a pigsty and fed on all sorts of kitchen waste that would be deemed totally unsuitable as a diet for pigs nowadays. The excess food and lack of exercise led to pigs being enormously fat, but bacon with thick layers of fat was the norm. My grandfather did not like this sort of bacon, so his pigs were kept outside and allowed to run around freely in the orchard, where they not only enjoyed the supply of apples, but also the exercise. As a consequence, they were markedly leaner than the vast majority of pigs of that era. The parishioners referred to these pigs as the vicar's greyhounds. On my father's side, my family were all members of the Society of Friends, otherwise known as Quakers. My grandmother, having been born when Queen Victoria had been on the throne for barely a third of her reign, and in the manner of Quakers of that period, addressed relatives and close friends with thou or thee. My uncle, my father's older brother, was married to Grace, and they had 3 children. One time when we were all visiting Gran together, I noticed that while my mother was addressed with thou, Grace was always addressed with you.
I asked my mother about this. Her response to a fairly small child was very diplomatic. She said, "I think Gran doesn't entirely approve of Grace." It was only years later that I discovered that the reason for her disapproval was that when Grace and my uncle married, she was already pregnant. This was not exactly a done thing in 1929. In a rural area close to Wales. One morning before his usual surgery, he paid an early visit on a patient. In the kitchen, he found the man's son with 3 frying pans full of sliced onions. After seeing his patient, my father came back downstairs and asked the son, "What are you cooking?" "Breakfast." "What? All those onions?" "Yep, it's market day." "And what's that got to do with a breakfast of fried onions?" "Dad told me if I had 3 pounds of fried onions for breakfast, no matter how much I had to drink, I'd never get drunk." "Does it work?" "Never found out." "Oh, how come?" "The horse knows its own way home." Finally, during the war, the Second World War, as I said, my dad was a doctor in a rural practice close to Wales. Petrol rationing was very severe, but as a doctor, he had an allowance to enable him to visit patients. Food was also rationed, but in an agricultural community, there was always scope for a certain amount to make its way onto the black market. In that era, farmers were able to slaughter their own animals instead of them being taken to a licensed slaughterhouse. Because of the rationing, and in an attempt to keep some kind of control, the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food would only allow the slaughter of animals after a permit had been obtained. There were some areas where control was almost impossible, for example with chickens, but with larger animals such as sheep, pigs and cattle, even if the exact record of each farm's livestock was next to impossible, it was possible to inspect premises when a slaughter permit had been obtained. One morning during surgery, Dad received a call from a patient who requested that he be the first call when he set out on his post-surgery rounds. "If it's an emergency, I'll come right away." "No, doctor, it's not a medical emergency, but please make me your first call." Dad finished his surgery and set out on his rounds, making small holding his first call. The farmer said, "I've had a licence to slaughter a pig, but somehow we seem to have ended up with 2 carcasses. My brother-in-law has tipped me off that inspectors will be down to check." The brother-in-law was a police officer, and the practice of slaughtering 2 pigs instead of 1 was known as killing 2 pigs on one squeal. "Please get it off my premises." "How much do you want for it?" "Just get it off my farm so I don't end up in jail." They loaded the carcass into the car, and Dad drove away. On his way up the lane, the inspectors were on their way down, and Dad gave them a cheery wave. At each visit, once the patient had been seen, Dad would ask the relations, "Would you like some pig?" The response was the same each time. "Oh yes, what have you got?" "It's in the back of the car." "What can I have?" "Whatever you want, just cut it off." "How much is it?" "Just give me what you think it's worth." And after lunch set out again. One stop was at a large house which had been, to which a school had been evacuated, and which took almost half of the carcass. At the end of the day, he had less than a fifth of the pig left, which was naturally put to good use at home. Dad did not return to the farmer until he was next in the area, when he called and said to the smallholder, "This is what I got for the pig." "You needn't have done that, you saved me from prison." The smallholder then looked at the money Dad had handed over. "My God, doctor, that's over double what I'd have got. We should go into business together." My father demurred.
Well, I'm afraid we're not far off nearly near the end of our rounds this year. We've still got a few people to go. And next up, I'd like to invite a lady who's down simply on my list as an individual, Sunita Webster.
This is a piece of fiction that we did in the afternoon workshop. I've never seen his face. I want to see it. He works on the scaffolding opposite where I work, and I see the girl in there yelling at him to get away from the window. But would you believe it? He's never turned round, not once. I imagine what he looks like. He's dressed in typical builder gear, camel-coloured steel toe caps and the blue jeans they all wear, plus a pale green tee. I imagine he has a beard, a big lustrous one, because I like them. But thinking about it, probably not. Probably too sweaty to have a beard as a builder. The others up there have a go at him as well. One particularly verbal older one, not as energetic as the rest, has some blinds at him. And for some unfathomable reason, I suddenly want to scratch his eyes out. I go to the coffee machine. They've only been working there for a week, not like it's been a long-term thing or anything, but I find myself straying from the compliance report, and Mrs Ferguson has called me in once this week already to find out if there's anything wrong. Is someone like you? I mumbled something about feeling a bit under the weather, and she wanted me to go home, rest it out, but that's the last thing I wanted to do. I insisted I was all right enough to stay, that working would get me better than stewing at home, and she reluctantly agreed. The coffee's atrocious, overbrewed and tepid. God. I clean it out and set it going again. I could have gone and found Debbie to do it, but this is good. This time away makes me feel like I'm in control of myself again. Like I won't be staring at him when I get back. I bash my finger against the desk on the way back and it gives me a hangnail that looks like a claw. Mrs Ferguson's gaze hits and I stand hits me and I stand there like a hummingbird stilled, while inside I'm running on high speed. I seat myself calmly, fix myself, and I'm about to go to the bathroom when I see that he is leaving. Now's my chance.
That should have been Sunitha, by the way. Sorry, real apologies for getting your name wrong. Unfortunately, as you get older, your eyesight gets worse and your brain rots. But apart from that, I'm fine.
Speak for yourself. Mine gets sharper every day.
Right, I've got a lady by the name of Carol Davies down here, but I think she's not here anymore, is she?
No.
If you're not here, Carol, can you put your arm up? No, I think it must have got round. As we get towards the end of the evening, usually I sing, so that's probably why she's not here. But somebody who definitely is here, who's also come a long way to entertain us today, from Words and Pick Open Writers, Jan Wilkins, ladies and gentlemen.
Writer's Jan Hedger, and I used to come up from Hastings with these reprobates. But now I live in the Welsh borders. But every now and then Pauline and I skedaddle back to Warsaw for their open mic sessions because we just like the city and just feeling well into it. And there's a guy there called Richard Archer who does these anthologies every year for charity. Pauline's already read from 3. And this was diverse too. And I'm taking you back, some of you back. Some of you won't remember at this time, of course. And it's a winter childhood, 1960s. Inside a bedroom window, lino sharp cold on warm feet, muffled hunting for comfort of slippers. Down to gloom shadow living room, single light bulb tries, but never quite makes it into every corner. 2-bar electric fire, perch on edge of chair, breakfast served up on a stool, blank TV. And this next one comes from the courtesy of dropped schoolwork from a young person, shall we say, on the canal towpath. And I used it in our writing group for a debate, and there was a new country, and you were the person responsible for animal welfare. What rules and etc. would you bring in? We ended up with a new world. We got far too many rules for a new country. And the homework was to write about an endangered species. And this is the rhino and the president. He met a prince once, trusted, dropped his guard, came out into the open for the world's press. After all, wasn't he protected? Millions of admirers, and a prince saw him once. but it took a volley of bullets from poachers to bring him down. Like a president once, in an open-top cavalcade, watched by the world, brought down by 2 shots. After all, wasn't he protected? One in death was respected, one was violated, dehorned, both reported by mass media. An open wound, unprotected. One had dined with world leaders. The other met a prince once. And that, of course, was when I no longer live in Hastings, as I've said. I've come from the Welsh borders, where we live now. And with Paul and I went on workshops that combined art, collage and writing. And this was produced on a walk down by the River Severn at Shrewsbury. Surroundings. On the Shrewsbury River path, although my eyes could take everything in, I focused on sound. I thoroughly enjoyed it, said Squeaky Shoes passing by. Blackbird alarm pierced the still air amongst the trees, flitting disturbance. Mum to questioning child, it's a ring you throw in if someone falls in the river. Conversation back and forth, walking on with disappearing voices. Station speaker bing bongs, pay attention on peopled platforms. Train destinations and arrivals, indistinguishable. Passengers invisible to me. I don't know them, or where they are going or coming from. Resting pigeons coo under riveted railway bridge. Cloaked rumble heard. Cycle wheels swishing on. Wet leaves. One smiling lady dings her bell. How sensible she is. Thank you.
Well, you'll all be, I know it's a very sad moment now, because I know you'll all be absolutely mortified that I'm not singing tonight. Oh. So just to finish off, because we've literally got a couple of minutes left, I'm going to read you 2 of my poems. I haven't actually read any of my stuff. One of them is me in my customary moany old git mode, and the other one, just to finish you off, is me being very, very romantic, and it's all about love. So you'll all be able to finish the day with a big Anyway, this is the moany old git one. It's called Drones, Phones and Gadgets. iPads, iPods, tablets and phones. We are a nation of virtual reality clones. Speak only when spoken to, divert eyes away. No longer seem cool to say, good day. Technological advances, spiritual community in reverse. No matter how integrated or spiritually diverse. Trapped by technology, the quickening pace. We move ever more swiftly, but with far less grace. The time of reckoning on a humanitarian scale shall creep up on us unless we abseil. Back to each other, back to the whole, for drones, phones and gadgets are a black hole. And that was me in a good mood. Right, well this one is the last one of the day, and it's dedicated to a girl who won my heart just by making an album. Her name is Goldie Reed, and I would strongly advise you to search out some of her music on the internet. This was written for Goldie, and it's called She Is. She is the unattainable dream, the face of an angel with voice to match. She is hopes embodied, tears of joys and sadness, contented bachelorhood turned to loneliness in but a blink. She is. She is light and not darkness, warmth where the fingers of Jack Frost once lay. She is the summer breeze waving its way through fields of corn, the sway of the rhythm of life and creation, a hand that feeds, nurtures and protects. She is. She is as I am, yet with an inner strength I sadly lack. She is where fantasies start and new birth begins. My soul ensnared, my heart captured. I am her slave. She is love. Thank you. Well, that's it for this year, ladies and gents. It's been lovely to see you all again, and handkerchiefs will be available for the fact that I haven't sung tonight as you walk out the door. But we've actually got about 10 minutes to gather our things and get out of the building. So have a safe journey home, and hope to see you all next year. Good night.